Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. I had another question from a patron about the Final Fantasy Japanese language collector boxes, and he and I had talked about these a few weeks ago before release, and my opinion at the time was, hey, these might be good to buy. In fact, I think I even said that in a video, that they might be a good alternative that actually moves upwards with the market. We don't get a lot of Japanese language Magic product in the US. We got a lot of Strixhaven set boxes. We got some, I think, Strixhaven collector boxes. We got Fallout collector boxes in Japanese language, and we've got in Final Fantasy collector boxes. And, there may be a smattering, small amounts that come in from specific dealers with relationships with people over in Japan who are able to bring some in, but it's just not a normal thing that's brought in large amounts in the US. And so where do I think these go? I think this kind of crossover, like Fallout was and like Final Fantasy is the right place to potentially bring in a bunch of Japanese language product, because I think it can actually support it. And you've got to understand that the vast majority of people who buy Magic products are buying them to play with. And in those conditions, buying Japanese language product is obnoxious. But when you have people who are Final Fantasy fans and the Japanese language stuff looks cool, maybe it's more authentic to them, maybe they speak Japanese, a couple of them. And so that kind of product can be really interesting to those people in those situations. With Strixhaven, it was kind of different because they had the Japanese language variants that had different artwork. And so they put the Japanese language mystical archive cards and the foil editions of them into the Strixhaven collector boxes. And it was this really cool alternate thing you could get. And then they also imported a whole bunch of Japanese language set boxes to support that, because you could just pull the normal Japanese language mystical archives out of the Japanese language box. And so that was kind of a one-off weird thing back in 2021 that they did that, just because of that kind of chase of the Japanese language cards that you could get out of the English boxes, and it created enough hype that you could support those other boxes. But in general, the Magic market in America does not care much for Japanese product. But Final Fantasy is showing to be one of those ones where I think there is actual good overlap, where the potential is good. And now that the collector boxes, the English language Final Fantasy collector boxes, have moved up to $1,200, yeah, definitely the Japanese language is a good substitute for some people. For people who are here buying this product because they are fans of Final Fantasy. Now, if you want cards to play with, cards to brew with in Commander, or cards to collect or whatever because you like Magic and this is just another Magic expansion and you buy a bunch of all of them, then this may not be your jam, and you may not care about the Japanese cards. And so I would expect that the Japanese collector boxes of Final Fantasy are going to continue to lag in price behind the English ones. Now, how much will that gap close? If the English boxes go to $2,000 3 months from now, well, then definitely the Japanese boxes are probably going to go to $1,200. But what the ratio between them will be, I would expect that to vary over time, because as the prices go up, you change buyer behavior. I mean, that's a fundamental law of economics. And so I think that if you want to speculate on them, hey, there's worse bets out there in the TCG investment world. So there's definitely worse bets to take. Now, all of this is a lot different from Japanese Pokemon. And the reason it's different is with Pokemon, 95% of the people buying Pokemon cards are collectors. They're not players. And so they're not going to be inconvenienced by Japanese language on their cards when they're trying to play the game, because most of them, the vast majority of them, don't play the game. Instead, they collect because they love the characters, they love the artwork, they love collecting it, they love the TV shows, and it's been a part of their life for their entire lives for most of these people. And so collecting the Japanese cards is just another extension of their collecting hobby. The second part of that, though, is that some of those buyers consider the Japanese Pokemon to be the real Pokemon. And it kind of is. They make a couple of Japanese expansions that are smaller than the English language expansions, and then they pick out a subset of cards from that to make the English language expansion. They translate them over, and sometimes they retouch the coloring or the art style, things like that. They may make other changes, but really the English language Pokemon sets are created from the Japanese language expansions. And so to a small percentage of American Pokemon collectors, the Japanese is the real Pokemon. And so, if I just have to throw out a number, I would estimate that somewhere on the order of, say, 10 to maybe 15% of American Pokemon collectors really love the Japanese product too and collect it alongside the English language stuff. So it's a much different deal with Japanese Pokemon. I think there is a incredibly underserved Japanese Pokemon market in North America. And I think most people who are putting boxes back in their closet are incredibly underestimating what the Japanese Pokemon boxes will do in the future, because it is completely underserved. There are not enough boxes coming in. And I think the demand for those boxes in the future is going to continue to grow. And you can see that you have this serviceable market, which is 100% of the North American Pokemon buyers who buy English language product. That's your potential market that could be convinced to also buy Japanese language product. And like I said, I estimate right now you're only getting 10 to 15% of that market. And so in the future, as that grows, which I would expect it to, you would expect that the demand for Japanese language Pokemon boxes in North America is going to become even more out of sync with the supply. And so I think way too few people are putting them back in their closet. I mean, in general, way too few people are putting all Pokemon back in their closet. That's why we keep watching Sword and Shield just shatter new records and continue to march up in price. But I think with Japanese, it's even worse. So understand the differences in why people buy these two different games, where the Japanese language product fits in there, and why sometimes there are exceptions, like Final Fantasy. I think Final Fantasy will do great. There are a bunch of actual fans of Final Fantasy who may see the Japanese language product and just lose their mind at how cool they think that is, and they absolutely have to have it. And for some players of Magic, the Japanese product will be an okay substitute at, what is it today, $700-800 a box, instead of $1,200 for the English language product. So those are my thoughts about that. Let me know what you think down below. Thanks to everybody who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon who actually get their questions answered. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.